40 years maybe. Look at verse 17, Matthew 1:17. So all the generations from Abraham to David are 14 generations. And from David unto the carrying away into Babylon are 14 generations. And from the carrying away into Babylon unto Christ are 14 generations. I don't know what the significance is of the number 14 there, but that's just how it works out. 14 generations, and then this next era for 14 generations, next era. Just giving you a little bit of the history here, or the etymology of this word generation. We also talk about the regeneration. What's the regeneration? Well, that's the new birth. When somebody is regenerated, okay, they were born once and now they died and they're regenerated. So the rapture, for instance, or the resurrection is called the regeneration. Okay, in the regeneration, this is going to happen, that's going to happen. But when you're saved, that's also called the regeneration according to Titus, because, you know, the flesh has now died, not literally, but in the spiritual sense, the flesh is dead and we are now a new birth, okay, the inner man that's born again through Christ Jesus. And so that's the regeneration. So right off the bat, the book of the generation of Jesus Christ, the son of David, the son of Abraham. Now, Matthew in this first chapter, actually first two chapters, is going to tell us, is going to just lay it all out about Jesus Christ, what we need to know about Jesus and what his gospel is that he's telling everybody. He gives it all away right here in the beginning. Not all the gospels do that. Some of them start with John the Baptist and different things, but Matthew and Luke start from the birth of Jesus Christ. Okay, so the points of this message are going to be pretty simple, because these are anytime you're trying to give, let's say you're writing an article for a newspaper or magazine, something like that. What do they always say? You want to answer the questions, the W's, right? Who, what, when, where, why. How's not a W, but, you know, throw that one in there. I don't know how that works. But, you know, basically you're answering all these questions and giving them the reader those answers. And so we're just going to go through those things and just look at our passage here and gather up all the information that Matthew's trying to give us. Okay. Now, first of all, you know, what are we talking about? What's going on? What's happening? It's the birth of Jesus Christ. Okay, we understand that. It's this birth. And of course, we see it in verse 1, the book of the generation of Jesus Christ, talking about his birth. Verse 18, now the birth of Jesus Christ was on this wise. And then it goes and explains that, which we'll read about it here in a little bit. Of course, this is the big thing that Matthew's wanting to talk about, the fact that the Son of God was born on this earth. And so he has to back up from the beginning and kind of explain how it happened and then fill in some details and talk about that. This is obviously a special birth. And as far as a Bible reader is concerned, this is what the whole Bible has been leading up to. Okay, because it goes all the way back, as you follow these generations, it goes all the way back to Abraham, really. I mean, to Adam, really. But in our text, it says the son of David, the son of Abraham. Okay, so if you go back into the Bible to Abraham, yeah, for sure, you can follow Abraham all the way back to Adam, the first man. But from Abraham, you know, he was called out from his people. And from there, God kind of started this idea of his people, right? The Jews, which they became, you know, called later on. And he's calling them out of that land there. And he's like, hey, you're going to be a peculiar people, not peculiar as in weird, but you're going to be a special people unto me. And basically, we learn really quickly that it has to do with their faith, not in their bloodline. John the Baptist is going to call people out for that. And Jesus often talks about you being of your father, the devil. So obviously, God's not so concerned about the bloodline as he is the faith, okay, and the spiritual seed. And that's all the way from the beginning as well. We see that spiritual seed of those who have called on the Lord. And so that's the most important thing. But there is a physical bloodline that takes place all the way up until Jesus Christ. And it's very important to the reader at that time, because who did this gospel originally go to first? It went to the lost tribes of Israel, or the lost sheep of Israel. And, Jesus is introduced by John the Baptist to all Judea who came out to be baptized and to hear the preaching of John the Baptist, who, by the way, the last book of the Old Testament, Malachi, said, hey, this is what you're waiting for. You're waiting for this prophet, this man who's going to introduce you to, the voice of one crying in the wilderness. And so when we come to Matthew, to the Gospels, you're going to see this man introduced, and he's going to introduce people to Jesus Christ. So obviously the whole Bible has already been leading up to this, and when you followed these generations and followed this lineage all the way up to Christ, because this was a very special birth. This is what the whole Bible is about. This is what all of history is about. Look at Luke 3. Now, obviously, we'll come to Luke here in a couple weeks. But Luke 3 also has a genealogy.